The change did not stay contained within the academy for long. Information moved faster than ships ever could. The released recordings reached training institutes, military schools, and research councils across nearby systems. Wherever the footage was viewed, the reaction followed the same pattern. Disbelief, silence, then careful attention. Instructors paused their lessons to show the recordings. Students leaned forward as the human girl moved calmly through chaos. No brute force, no rage, only timing and control. Discussions followed that lasted far longer than scheduled classes. She should not have one student said. But she did, another replied. That simple truth unsettled many assumptions. Back at the academy, Lily Carter felt the shift in smaller ways. Her path through the halls was no longer blocked. Casual insults disappeared. Even the boldest students chose distance over confrontation. Some approached her carefully. "Is it true you train like that from childhood?" one asked. "Some of us," Lily answered. "Why?" "Because the universe is not gentle," she said. That answer spread almost as quickly as the footage. Instructors revised evaluation metrics. Adaptability scores were weighted higher. Situational awareness was emphasized. Species once ranked as dominant dropped slightly in standing. Human entries rose. "We misjudged their survival model," an analyst admitted during a faculty briefing. "They are not built to overpower. They are built to endure." Outside the academy, the story grew sharper edges. Headlines spoke of underestimated humans. Commentaries questioned long-held rankings. Some voices mocked the concern. "One student proves nothing," they said. Others disagreed. "One example reveals a pattern," a strategist replied, "especially when that example shows restraint." Back on campus, Lily was invited to observe advanced strategy sessions. Not to participate, not yet, but her presence alone changed the room. Speakers chose their words more carefully. Assumptions were challenged sooner. Karn and the others were gone from public view. Their names faded from discussion, replaced by a quiet understanding of what arrogance had cost them. Lily did not celebrate. She studied. She trained. She listened. One evening, she joined a small group of mixed-species students in the training hall. They asked her to demonstrate movement patterns. Not strikes, just footwork. "It looks simple," one said. "Simple is hard," Lily replied. As days passed, the academy settled into a new balance. Humans were no longer ignored. They were watched closely, sometimes with caution, sometimes with respect. Messages arrived from other institutions. Requests for exchange programs, observation permits. Quiet interest turned official. The lesson had moved beyond one fight. It had become a warning. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. But they learned. And once the galaxy noticed that truth, it could never unsee it. Far above the academy, ships passed through the stars, carrying data and rumors alike. The universe adjusted its expectations. Slowly, reluctantly, but permanently, the academy returned to its routine, but it was no longer the same place. Schedules resumed. Lectures continued. Training halls stayed busy. Yet beneath it all, a quiet awareness had taken root. Lily Carter felt it in every room she entered. She was no longer invisible. In her final evaluation session of the cycle, Lily stood before a small panel of instructors. This time, there was no doubt in their expressions. "You have completed the exchange requirements," one of them said. "With distinction." "Thank you," Lily replied. "You changed our understanding," another added. "Not through dominance, but through discipline." Lily considered the words. "Understanding lasts longer," she said. No one argued. Outside the chamber, students gathered in clusters. Some spoke openly now about humans. Others listened. Old jokes were gone. Careless assumptions faded into memory. One younger student approached Lily hesitantly. "Are humans really dangerous?" Lily shook her head. "No. Not by choice." "Then why are others afraid?" Lily paused. "Because restraint is harder to predict than aggression. The student nodded, unsure, but thoughtful. News reached the academy later that cycle. Several institutions had updated their classification systems. Humans were no longer listed as minor contributors. New categories were being written: adaptable species, strategic generalists. Some instructors welcomed the change. Others resisted, but the shift continued. Lily prepared for her next phase of study. She packed the same small bag she had arrived with. No trophies, no marks of victory. Before leaving her dorm, she looked out the window one last time. Stars burned quietly in the distance. Endless, indifferent. She smiled faintly. When Lily walked through the academy gates, no one blocked her path. No one laughed. A few nodded. A few watched with respect. She did not look back. Behind her, the academy continued teaching its students about strength. But now its definition had changed. Strength was no longer measured only by size or force. It was measured by control, by patience, by the ability to survive, adapt, and choose restraint when power was available. Far beyond the academy, the lesson continued to travel. Carried by data, by rumor, by memory. Humans were not prey. They never had been. And the academy would remember the price it paid for learning that truth. Ethan Cole learned about pain before he learned how to read. It was always there, quiet some days and cruel on others, sitting inside his body like a weight he could never put down. Doctors gave it long names and short answers. They said it was chronic, that it would not go away, that he would have to learn to live with it. Ethan was still a child when he understood something important. Pain was not a moment. Pain was a companion. He grew up in a small city on Earth, in an apartment that was too warm in summer and too cold in winter. His mother, Laura Cole, worked long hours and worried even longer nights. She watched him carefully, afraid he would break if he ran or fell like other kids. Ethan learned to move slowly, to think before every step. But inside his mind, he was always moving forward. He refused to let pain decide who he was. At school, teachers thought he was quiet and distant. Other children thought he was strange. When they complained about sore muscles or headaches, Ethan listened in silence. Their pain came and went. His stayed. Over time, this taught him patience. When others panicked, he waited. When others quit, he endured. Pain became his teacher, shaping his thoughts and hardening his will. As Ethan grew older, humanity changed. Faster ships crossed the solar system. New colonies formed beyond Earth. News feeds spoke of progress, hope, and a future among the stars. Then came first contact. Alien vessels appeared at the edge of human space, and everything shifted. Some aliens came to trade. Others came to test human strength. Not all tests were peaceful. Ethan watched the news like everyone else. He saw powerful alien empires, advanced weapons, and towering figures that made humans look small. Fear spread across Earth. Governments spoke of defense and unity. Recruiters appeared everywhere, asking for strong bodies and sharp minds. Ethan never considered joining. His body hurt too much. His medical files would end that dream quickly. Instead, he found work as a systems technician. It was quiet, careful work. He fixed navigation relays and monitored long-distance transports. The job did not require strength, only focus. Focus was something pain had taught him well. While others grew restless during long shifts, Ethan stayed calm. He listened to machines hum and learned their patterns, the same way he had learned his own body. Years passed. Alien politics grew darker. One empire, known as the Varuun Dominion, expanded aggressively. Human ships vanished near disputed borders. Trade routes closed. Fear returned, stronger than before. Ethan worked on a civilian transport assigned to carry supplies to an outer colony. It was supposed to be safe. It was not. The attack came without warning. Alarms screamed through the ship as alien vessels surrounded them. The Varuun forces cut power, locked down systems, and boarded within minutes. Their soldiers moved with confidence, tall and armored, their voices sharp and cold. Humans were ordered to the floor. Some resisted. Most froze. Ethan lowered himself slowly, pain burning through his spine as he knelt. He focused on breathing, on staying steady. Fear pressed against him, but it did not break him. He had lived with something worse for his entire life. The aliens scanned the crew, speaking in harsh tones. Humans were labeled, counted, and judged. To the Varuun, Ethan was nothing special. He was thin, quiet, damaged. His medical scan marked him as weak. That decision sealed his fate. He was not killed. He was taken. The transport was seized and redirected deep into Varuun space. Days blurred together in dim holding chambers. Other humans cried, shouted, and begged. Ethan stayed silent. He saved his energy. Pain flared with every movement, but he accepted it the way he always had. He observed the guards, the routines, the small flaws in their control. When they arrived at the mining world, Ethan finally understood the truth. This was not a prison meant to hold people for a time. It was a place meant to break them forever. The air was heavy, the ground cracked, and the work endless. Alien overseers believed suffering created obedience. As Ethan stepped onto the harsh surface of the planet, pain surged through his body like fire. He staggered but did not fall. He straightened slowly, breathing through the agony. One of the overseers watched him closely, expecting weakness, expecting collapse. Ethan met its gaze without anger or fear. The overseer turned away, already bored. It did not understand what it had just missed. For Ethan Cole, pain was not the end of strength. It was the beginning. And on this forgotten world, a story was about to begin that the Varuun Dominion would one day fear. The first days on the mining world were the hardest for most prisoners. The heat pressed down like a living thing. The air tasted of dust and metal. Every breath felt wrong. Humans and other captured species were pushed into lines and given simple tools that barely worked. The Varuun guards watched from raised platforms, silent and cruel. Ethan Cole understood quickly that this place was designed to erase hope. Work shifts lasted until bodies failed. Food was thin and tasteless. Water was measured and often warm. Anyone who collapsed was dragged away. No one asked where they went. No one wanted to know. Pain lived inside Ethan as it always had, but now it had company. Muscles screamed from labor. His joints burned under the planet's heavy gravity. Each step felt like walking through fire. Other prisoners cried out or cursed the guards. Ethan said nothing. He focused on rhythm. Lift, step, breathe, rest only when ordered. This silence confused the overseers. They were used to fear. They expected pleading and anger. When Ethan was struck for moving too slowly, he did not react the way they wanted. He did not beg. He did not rage. He only adjusted his stance and continued working. Pain was familiar ground. The guards could not surprise him with it. At night, prisoners were locked into narrow holding cells. The lights never fully turned off. Sleep came in broken pieces. Ethan lay on the hard surface and listened. He learned the sounds of patrols, the timing of shifts, the small changes that marked different guards. Pain made sleep shallow, but it also made his senses sharp. Other humans noticed him. A man named Caleb whispered one night, asking how Ethan stayed calm. Ethan answered honestly. He said pain never really left him, so fear had nothing new to offer. Caleb did not understand, but the words stayed with him. Days turned into weeks. The Varuun began sorting prisoners based on endurance. Those who failed were removed. Those who survived were pushed harder. Ethan was placed in deeper tunnels where the air was thin and machines often broke. Accidents were common. Death was expected. One shift, a drilling rig malfunctioned and collapsed part of the tunnel. Panic spread. Prisoners ran, shouting in different languages. Guards opened fire without warning. Ethan froze for half a second, pain locking his spine, then forced himself forward. He noticed something others missed. The guards were retreating. The tunnel was unstable. The Varuun did not want to die for slaves. Ethan dragged an injured worker out of the dust. His arms shook, pain flooding every nerve, but he did not stop. He moved because stopping hurt more. When the tunnel finally gave way, Ethan was already clear. The next day, the overseers spoke his identification number more than once. Their tone had changed. It was not respect. It was caution. Ethan began to see the structure of the Empire in small ways. The Varuun valued order above all. They believed control was strength. Individual thought was discouraged, even among their own ranks. This made them powerful, but it also made them predictable. Ethan shared quiet observations with other prisoners. Nothing obvious, just small advice. Where to stand during inspections. When to slow down without drawing attention. How to conserve strength. These small acts saved lives. The guards noticed fewer accidents, fewer deaths. Efficiency increased. They credited discipline. They did not realize a human was guiding it. One overseer, taller than the rest and marked with command symbols, began watching Ethan closely. Its eyes lingered during work cycles. It tested him with extra labor and sudden punishment. Ethan endured it all. Every strike confirmed the same truth. The overseer needed fear. Ethan did not give it. During a rare transport between sites, Ethan overheard guards speaking about the wider empire. Wars on distant fronts. Rebellions crushed. Entire species forced into service. The Varuun believed their rule was eternal. Ethan listened and remembered. That night, lying awake with pain burning through his limbs, he made a decision. Survival was no longer enough. Endurance alone would not change anything. The Empire believed pain broke beings. Ethan knew better. Pain could also sharpen the mind, harden resolve, and teach patience. As the mining world continued its endless grind, the Varuun Dominion unknowingly took its first step toward fear. The human they had marked as weak was learning their empire from the inside. And pain, his oldest companion, was helping him every step of the way. The deeper tunnels were quieter than the surface. Machines echoed through stone, and the air felt thin and sharp in the lungs. Light came from old panels that flickered without warning. This was where the Varuun sent prisoners they expected to lose. Ethan Cole was sent there because he kept surviving. Pain followed him with every step. The heavy gravity pressed down on his bones, and his nerves burned as if they were exposed. Some days, even standing felt impossible. Ethan learned to lean against the wall when guards were not watching. He learned how to breathe through shaking muscles. Pain was loud, but it was also honest. It told him his limits and dared him to cross them. The other prisoners in the deep tunnels were afraid. They spoke in whispers if they spoke at all. Many had already given up. Ethan watched them closely. Fear made people careless. Carelessness got them killed. He began helping in small ways. He showed them how to pace their movements, how to lift without tearing muscle, how to rest without looking weak. The guards noticed something strange. Productivity did not drop. It improved. Fewer prisoners collapsed. Fewer needed to be dragged away. The Varuun believed fear was working better. They were wrong. One day, a guard shoved Ethan aside for not moving fast enough. The blow sent pain through his chest like a blade. Ethan hit the ground hard. For a moment, the tunnel went quiet. The guard waited for screams. Ethan stayed silent. He pushed himself up slowly, hands shaking, breath controlled. His face showed effort but not fear. The guard stepped back without meaning to. Something about the human's calm unsettled it. Pain was supposed to weaken. This pain did not. After that, punishments came more often. Extra shifts, reduced food, longer hours in unstable sections of the mine. Ethan accepted all of it. He used the time to learn. He studied the machines, the power flow, the way alarms were wired. He noticed which guards skipped inspections and which followed rules too closely. Pain sharpened his focus. When his body screamed, his mind narrowed. Distractions faded. Details stood out. During a machine failure, Ethan acted without thinking. A power conduit sparked near a group of prisoners. Most froze. Ethan moved, grabbing a tool and cutting power at the source. The shock of movement sent pain exploding through his back, but the sparks stopped. The prisoners stared at him in disbelief. The guards arrived late. They blamed the equipment. Ethan returned to work as if nothing had happened. Word spread quietly. The human did not panic. The human saw things others missed. Prisoners began watching him the way sailors watch stars. not as a leader but as a sign. One night, a woman named Claire whispered to him through the cell barrier. She asked why he helped when it only brought more punishment. Ethan answered simply. He said pain already took enough from him. He would not let it take his choices too. The next work cycle, a tunnel collapse trapped several prisoners and 2 guards. Dust filled the air. Screams echoed through stone. Ethan felt fear rise for the first time in a long while, sharp and sudden. He forced it down. Fear wasted energy. Using broken supports and shattered tools, Ethan guided survivors toward a narrow escape path. He moved last, every step tearing through his body. A guard tried to order him back. Ethan ignored it. The guard did not follow. When rescue teams arrived, they found more survivors than expected. Reports were filed. Questions were asked. Ethan's identification number appeared again in Varuun records, now marked with caution symbols. The overseer returned. It watched Ethan from a distance, studying him like a problem that refused to solve itself. The overseer increased surveillance, but something had already changed. Control was slipping. Ethan understood this too. Pain had taught him how to endure force. Now it was teaching him how to apply it. Not with strength, but with timing, patience, and resolve. As weeks passed, Ethan realized the truth. The Varuun feared chaos, but they created it themselves. Their system depended on fear, and fear depended on pain. Ethan smiled faintly to himself, even as pain burned through his body. Pain was not just something to survive anymore. It was something he could use. The deeper tunnels were quieter than the surface. Machines echoed through stone, and the air felt thin and sharp in the lungs. Light came from old panels that flickered without warning. This was where the Varuun sent prisoners they expected to lose. Ethan Cole was sent there because he kept surviving. Pain followed him with every step. The heavy gravity pressed down on his bones, and his nerves burned as if they were exposed. Some days, even standing felt impossible. Ethan learned to lean against the wall when guards were not watching. He learned how to breathe through shaking muscles. Pain was loud, but it was also honest. It told him his limits and dared him to cross them. The other prisoners in the deep tunnels were afraid. They spoke in whispers if they spoke at all. Many had already given up. Ethan watched them closely. Fear made people careless. Carelessness got them killed. He began helping in small ways. He showed them how to pace their movements, how to lift without tearing muscle, how to rest without looking weak. The guards noticed something strange. Productivity did not drop. It improved. Fewer prisoners collapsed. Fewer needed to be dragged away. The Varuun believed fear was working better. They were wrong. One day, a guard shoved Ethan aside for not moving fast enough. The blow sent pain through his chest like a blade. Ethan hit the ground hard. For a moment, the tunnel went quiet. The guard waited for screams. Ethan stayed silent. He pushed himself up slowly, hands shaking, breath controlled. His face showed effort but not fear. The guard stepped back without meaning to. Something about the human's calm unsettled it. Pain was supposed to weaken. This pain did not. After that, punishments came more often. Extra shifts, reduced food, longer hours in unstable sections of the mine. Ethan accepted all of it. He used the time to learn. He studied the machines, the power flow, the way alarms were wired. He noticed which guards skipped inspections and which followed rules too closely. Pain sharpened his focus. When his body screamed, his mind narrowed. Distractions faded. Details stood out. During a machine failure, Ethan acted without thinking. A power conduit sparked near a group of prisoners. Most froze. Ethan moved, grabbing a tool and cutting power at the source. The shock of movement sent pain exploding through his back, but the sparks stopped. The prisoners stared at him in disbelief. The guards arrived late. They blamed the equipment. Ethan returned to work as if nothing had happened. Word spread quietly. The human did not panic. The human saw things others missed. Prisoners began watching him the way sailors watch stars. Not as a leader, but as a sign. One night, a woman named Claire whispered to him through the cell barrier. She asked why he helped when it only brought more punishment. Ethan answered simply. He said pain already took enough from him. He would not let it take his choices too. The next work cycle, a tunnel collapse trapped several prisoners and 2 guards. Dust filled the air. Screams echoed through stone. Ethan felt fear rise for the first time in a long while, sharp and sudden. He forced it down. Fear wasted energy. Using broken supports and shattered tools, Ethan guided survivors toward a narrow escape path. He moved last, every step tearing through his body. A guard tried to order him back. Ethan ignored it. The guard did not follow. When rescue teams arrived, they found more survivors than expected. Reports were filed. Questions were asked. Ethan's identification number appeared again in Varuun records, now marked with caution symbols. The overseer returned. It watched Ethan from a distance, studying him like a problem that refused to solve itself. The overseer increased surveillance, but something had already changed. Control was slipping. Ethan understood this too. Pain had taught him how to endure force. Now it was teaching him how to apply it. Not with strength, but with timing, patience, and resolve. As weeks passed, Ethan realized the truth. The Varuun feared chaos, but they created it themselves. Their system depended on fear, and fear depended on pain. Ethan smiled faintly to himself, even as pain burned through his body. Pain was not just something to survive anymore. It was something he could use. Change did not arrive with noise. It arrived quietly, like breath held too long. Ethan Cole felt it before he saw it. The guards were tense. Orders changed more often. Patrols doubled in some areas and vanished in others. The Varuun sensed imbalance, though they did not understand its source. Ethan continued to work as always. He lifted, walked, and endured. Pain burned through him from morning to night, but he no longer saw it as an enemy. It was a signal. When pain rose sharply, he slowed his body and sharpened his mind. When pain dulled, he acted. He began testing limits. Small things at first. A delay in a shift change. A tool moved from its place. A power relay left slightly loose. Each test showed him how the system reacted. The Varuun relied on routines. When routines failed, confusion followed. Other prisoners noticed the changes. They felt it in the way guards argued among themselves, in the way alarms sounded late or not at all. Ethan did not announce anything. He spoke quietly only when needed. He gave advice without commands. Stand here, not there. Wait now. Move later. A man named Luke nearly ruined everything when he struck a guard in anger. The guard fell, stunned but alive. For a moment, time froze. Other guards raised their weapons. Fear swept through the tunnel. Ethan stepped forward. The movement sent sharp pain through his legs, but he ignored it. He raised his hands slowly and spoke in a calm voice. He pointed to a damaged support beam above them. He warned of collapse. The guards hesitated. One looked up. That second was enough. The tunnel gave way. Dust filled the air. Lights failed. Shouts echoed in panic. Ethan moved through the chaos, guiding prisoners toward a side passage he had studied for weeks. Some followed without question. Others froze and were lost. When the dust settled, the Varuun had lost control of the sector. It was not a victory announced by banners or cheers. It was a quiet absence. Guards did not return. Orders did not come. The mining sector went dark. For the first time, prisoners stood without chains and without commands. Ethan did not celebrate. He knew the Empire would respond. He organized what little they had. Food was rationed. Water sources were secured. Lookouts were placed near access tunnels. Pain made his body slow, but it also kept him alert. He rested only when needed and slept lightly, listening to the stone around him. When Varuun forces returned, they came with armor and weapons. They expected chaos and panic. Instead, they found traps, collapsing tunnels, power surges, false signals that pulled them apart. Ethan stayed behind the front line. He directed movements, redirected groups, and watched the flow of the fight. Every decision came with pain. Every step felt like breaking glass inside his body. He welcomed it. Pain kept him present. An officer pushed through the smoke, shouting orders. It was the same overseer who had watched Ethan for so long. Their eyes met across the broken ground. The overseer raised its weapon. Ethan did not run. He moved sideways, pulling a release lever he had marked weeks ago. The ground beneath the overseer collapsed into a lower shaft. The officer vanished into darkness, its command broken in an instant. The Varuun forces withdrew soon after. They sealed the sector and marked it as lost. The rebellion had not spread across the planet. It did not need to. One successful defiance was enough. The idea escaped the tunnels even if the prisoners did not. Ethan sat against a stone wall after it was over. His body trembled uncontrollably. Pain crashed over him in waves, stronger than ever before. He closed his eyes and breathed through it, slow and steady. Others gathered nearby. They did not cheer. They watched him with something new in their eyes. Trust. Ethan opened his eyes and spoke softly. He said this was only the beginning. The Empire would come again, harder and angrier. But now they knew something important. The Varuun were not invincible. As alarms echoed in distant tunnels and warning signals spread through the mining world, the Varuun Dominion recorded its first loss at the hands of a single human. Fear had just learned a new name. The Varuun Dominion did not announce the loss of the mining sector. Empires rarely admitted weakness. Instead, records were sealed, reports rewritten, and blame assigned to equipment failure. But silence could not erase what had happened. Fear has a way of traveling, even without words. Across the mining world, security tightened. New troops arrived. Patrols became heavier and more aggressive. Prisoners were moved, separated, and questioned. The Varuun searched for a leader, someone loud and visible. They did not look for a quiet human who worked slowly and spoke little. Ethan Cole stayed where he was. He returned to routine labor in a different sector, his body still damaged from the rebellion. Pain sat deep in his bones, heavier than before. Some days his vision blurred from it. He adjusted. He always did. Prisoners whispered about the dark sector that never reopened. They spoke of guards who vanished and tunnels that swallowed command officers. No one used Ethan's name openly. The Varuun listened too closely. Instead, they used a simple phrase. The quiet human. Ethan noticed changes beyond the mining world. Supply schedules shifted. Communication delays increased. Guards argued more often and followed orders with less confidence. Fear did not make the Varuun weak, but it made them rigid. Rigid systems cracked under pressure. During transfers between work sites, Ethan overheard fragments of conversations. Other worlds had seen problems. Small revolts, sabotage, disappearances. Nothing large enough to name a war, but enough to worry commanders. The idea had escaped. Ethan did not rush to spread it further. He knew patience mattered. Pain taught him that rushing led to mistakes. He focused on survival and observation. He watched how fear changed behavior. Guards avoided certain tunnels. Officers stayed closer to extraction points. No one wanted to be alone. A woman named Megan joined his work detail. She was injured, favoring one leg. Guards expected her to fail. Ethan showed her how to shift weight and conserve energy. She survived the week. Others noticed. Soon, small groups formed around him without formal agreement. They shared food, watched each other's backs, and passed information quietly. Ethan never claimed leadership. He only listened and responded. The Varuun responded with force. One cycle, prisoners were lined up and executed at random. The message was clear. Fear was still the Empire's language. Many broke that day. Some begged. Others went silent. Ethan felt anger rise, sharp and hot. Pain flared in response, grounding him. Anger clouded judgment. Pain cleared it. That night, he adjusted his approach. He began feeding the Varuun false patterns. Minor disruptions followed by calm. Then calm followed by sudden failure. Guards grew tense, unsure when to react. Officers issued conflicting orders. Control weakened. Reports reached higher command. A human was mentioned, not by name but by description. Quiet, unreactive, always present when things went wrong. The phrase changed. The quiet human became the feared human. Ethan learned this from a frightened guard who spoke too freely during a late shift. The guard admitted fleets were being reassigned. Commanders were demanding results. Failure was no longer acceptable. Ethan understood the danger. Attention meant risk, but it also meant leverage. He made one careful move. He allowed a message to be intercepted. It spoke of another sector, another plan. It was incomplete but tempting. The Varuun took the bait. For 3 cycles, security shifted away from vital systems. When the failure came, it was not violent. Power grids shut down. Doors locked and would not open. Ships were delayed on the ground. No lives were lost. That was important to Ethan. The message spread faster than any rebellion. The Varuun could be outmaneuvered. They could be made afraid without open war. By the time order was restored, the damage was done. Commanders began altering routes and delaying operations whenever human prisoners were involved. Entire plans changed because of one species. Ethan sat alone after his shift, pain pulsing through him like a slow drumbeat. He pressed his back against the cold wall and breathed. He did not smile. Fear was spreading through the stars, and the Varuun were learning a truth they had never accepted. Humans did not need to be stronger. They only needed to endure long enough to understand. And Ethan Cole had endured his whole life.